If you were given $1 million, how much of your body would you be willing to sell? This man, for $1 million, hasn't slept for 3,456 hours. Squid Game for 8 people. Just throw away your humanity. You can win $456 billion. Would you do it? The man named 3. He cleans windows at 100,000 meters high every day. Barely saves enough to buy some kimchi. But then the price of kimchi suddenly rises, making him so desperate he considers jumping off the building. At that moment, he receives a text message telling him that if he joins a game, he can win $456 billion to afford the expensive kimchi. He agrees. When he enters the game room, he randomly picks number 3. But little does he know that this number will determine his fate for the next few days. There are 8 floors here. To go upstairs, you can only use the stairs. The only elevator is hidden in a room, and it's used to transport foods. Here, 3 learns the rules of the game. 1. You must hand over all your belongings and wear the assigned outfit. 2. You can check the prize money on the screen in the room. 3. You can use a walkie-talkie to buy items needed in the room, but you cannot take items out of the room. 4. From midnight to 8 a.m. the next day, you must stay in your room. 5. You cannot cover the cameras. Breaking any rule will result in losing half of the prize money. As soon as 3 changes into his outfit, he finds an extra 30,000 in his account. It turns out that just by being here, he can earn money by doing nothing. The man wants to buy some kimchi to eat, but finds out that the price of kimchi here is 10 times higher than outside. So he has to stay hungry, using newspapers as a blanket, and solving his yellow with a plastic bottle. The next morning, he saw 7 other people besides himself. They found out that everything here was fake. The hamburgers were fake. The water in the pool was fake. Even the sun was fake. It was all designed to make them spend money in the square. They also found out that in the square, they didn't spend money but leftover time, and the prices in the square were half of those indoors. After discussing it, they decided to buy some basic supplies. As soon as they got the buckets, 3 ran back into his room, pulled out last year's kimchi. As soon as they finished, they wanted to eat, but 8 said she had already eaten, because the elevator in her room brought food and water every day. 3 asked her why she didn't share with others, but 8 said she thought it was hers. That was the first time everyone realized how different 8's thinking was, but she still agreed to share the food from her room with the people downstairs via the elevator. To make sure of the amount of food, the 8 of them went to the 8th floor and found out that it wasn't just a higher floor. Everything, from the size of the rooms to the amount of rewards, was several times more than theirs. It turned out that the amount of rewards each person got per hour increased exponentially according to the floor number. Just 1 hour's reward on the 8th floor was 30 times that of the 1st floor. And such a large gap in destiny was all randomly decided. Just like everyone's birth. After leaving the room, 2 suddenly realized there were only 15 minutes left on the square's timer. It turned out that 8 had started shopping again. She bought 100 pieces of clothing because she wanted to wear something different every day. 2 questioned why she didn't buy in the room, but 8 said that what she bought in the room couldn't be worn outside. That's why 2 was not pleased with 8. As time passed by, everyone didn't want to end this life where they could earn money lying down. However, 8 remained calm, because she knew climbing stairs can earn time. At first, no one believed her, but in order to stay there, they had to give it a try. While they were climbing the stairs, the countdown suddenly ended. Everyone stood still, thinking their good days were over. But the next second, the countdown turned back to 24 hours. It turned out climbing stairs really worked. To prolong their time there, everyone climbed stairs every day except for sleeping. However, 1 had a limp. Although 2 and 3 helped him out a bit, he still felt guilty. So he volunteered to keep everyone's excrement in his room. That's how 1 fell asleep every day, with the smell of urine. But 7 found out that they were spending less and less time climbing stairs. 8 even changed back to fancy clothes and decided to give up climbing stairs. 2 asked her why she gave up when she was earning more money per hour than anyone else. 8 countered with a question.
오히려 2층님이랑 밑에 분들이 일을 더 해야 하는 거 아니에요?
2층이 쓰는 1시간은 불과 120만 원이지만 8층이 쓰는 1시간은 무려 2,040만 원.
Even though 8 seems crazy, Her mind is quite sharp. They climb from day to night. But time only increases by 20 minutes. The next morning, they wake up to climb. But 4, who overexercised, suddenly collapses, foaming at the mouth and convulsing. 5 used to be a nurse, and says it's a sign of epilepsy. As long as there's medicine, it can be relieved. They carry 4 to the first floor, and 2 prepares to buy medicine. But 6 stops her, because he doesn't want everyone's money to be used to treat 4.
너 사람 새끼 아니구나.
2 tried to bypass 6, but was grabbed by 6. The 2 started wrestling, although 6 was no match for 2. Others intervened to break it up, but ended up holding back 2 for 6. Amidst the chaos, 3 finally reached the intercom, while 2 and 7 restrained 6. Medicine was finally bought. 8 laughed hysterically on the sidelines.
저거 안 보이냐고요.
They saw the time on the square change to 40 hours. It turned out this wasn't some magical space at all, but a theater broadcasted for the wealthy. As long as the wealthy found it amusing, the time on the square would increase. Once they grew tired of it, the added time would decrease, to increase the time on the square. 8 decided to perform a special act.
칠층님 나랑 잘래요?
무슨 말씀이시죠?
나랑 하자고요. 섹스.
거절하겠습니다.
3 stood up straight, spread his legs, but 8 still walked backward, choosing 6 instead. Dear audience, next up is the paid content, but I can tell you, they received a reward of 69 hours. 8 was awarded first place, while 3, with his Jijagaga dance, ended up last, and the limping one, surprisingly, with his clown performance, got second place. Now, the confident one suggested that someone else's room should be used to collect everyone's excrement. He could already guess everyone's eating preferences from the smell of their excrement. So, they decided by voting who the next human toilet should be. Before the arrival of the next day, everyone was operating in secret. 4, as the second to last performer of the show, to avoid being chosen, tried to persuade 5, also a woman, to vote for 1 who was originally in charge of the garbage. On the other side, 7 went to 3's room. He had long been attracted to the clear foolishness in 3, and he also wanted to vote for 1, saying it was the broken window effect, because throwing garbage into one's room had become a habit. Even if he was chosen again, the others wouldn't be unhappy. But 5 didn't think so. She felt sorry for 1, preferring to put the garbage in her own room, than in her. So, 4 changed her mind, went to 3's room, which was also at the bottom, and decided to get everyone to vote for 8, although she had already convinced 1 beforehand. But when she was facing 2,
이층님.
꺼져.
네.
그래도 우리 셋에
now they have 4 votes in their hands, just when everyone thought 8 would be voted out. 6 found 7, hoping he'd stand on their side along with 8, and vote for 3, who was the last performer, when the voting results were announced. Except for 5, who abstained. 8 received a total of 4 votes, and became the next toilet. Although 3 didn't have to be the toilet, he was still curious about who else, besides 6 and 8, voted for him. Was it 4? But 8 wasn't someone to mess with either, though she smiled and agreed on the surface. When dinner time came, all that came down from the 8th floor elevator were empty food containers and water bottles. Everyone, eager to retaliate against 8, seemed to forget that in this building, 8 wasn't just the craziest person, but also the most powerful. Without water for 3 days, everyone would turn into walking corpses. 2 couldn't stand such torment, and decided to exchange time for food. But besides 2, no one wanted to waste time like this, because to them, this place was just a cage, and real life was hell. Under the grip of hunger, 3 and 4 finally decided to apologize to 8, and offer their rooms as toilets, in exchange for everyone's meals. But 7 suggested going to communicate with 8 instead of the 2. He first acknowledged 8's efforts in the performance show, then offered an apology, and finally proposed 3 and 4 volunteering as toilets as a condition. It was a textbook example of an effective apology. Sure enough, 8 accepted the apology, realizing 8's position among the crowd. Everyone exchanged time to get 10 billion pieces of clothing for 8. Nowadays, 8 changes into a new outfit every hour, although 2 was still unhappy. 7 told her This was the best outcome for now, if it weren't for him apologizing on behalf of 3 and 4. 8, who controls the food and water, could have lasted until everyone couldn't hold on anymore, turning them into slaves of her food. But 7's apology reached an equal treaty with 8, allowing them to preserve a shred of humanity, only serving as 8 servants. That night, everyone finally had their first full meal. While 8 came up with a new game for herself, she prepared 8 ping pong balls according to the number of people, including 7 numbers. Whoever draws the K is the king, and can order the others to do anything. Because of this, numbers 7 and 6, 2 grown men, had to hold hands. Numbers 1 and 5, who were married, had to kiss. But when it came to numbers 2 and 6, they had to fight each other, until one of them won. The more they fought, the more the rich people behind the cameras were entertained. It added 50 hours for them to stay there and earn money. To stop more violence, everyone decided to use a stun gun to punish rule breakers. So in the next king game, number 3 was punished with an electric shock for not obeying the king's order to touch number 5's silicone. He then lost a slapping contest to number 2 and was shocked again. Smelling his pants, number 3 thought he had bad luck, but number 1 said someone must be cheating. It turned out that number 4, who flipped the coin, could feel which side it landed on, deciding who won. Number 7 also noticed that number 4 put acetone on the balls, so she could choose which one was the king by its stickiness. The next day, the grassroots people decided to let number 1 pick the king and commoners. This time, numbers 7 and 8 were chosen as commoners, before number 4 flipped the coin. Number 1 asked her to do it with the back of her hand. This way, she couldn't cheat. Sure enough, number 8 guessed wrong, but just as number 7 was about to shock number 8, he were kicked away. It was number 6.
뻔하게 가면 재미없잖아. 반전이 있어야지, 반전이.
When 7 woke up, he had been moved to room 8. 6 tried to convince the smart 7 should have a better future if he helped the higher-ups, instead of the lower class. Watching the gun at SIX's waist, 7 had no choice but to agree. Since then, except for Traitor 4, 1, 2, 3, and 5 became slaves to the higher-ups. They performed shows every day to earn time. For every 3 hours they earned, they got 1 coin, which could be exchanged for food or water. Only the higher-ups could live in luxury, while the lower class, no matter how hard they tried, could barely get by. If the lower class wanted to fight back, they faced SIX's electric gun. The game became more like real life, with the lower class becoming playthings for the higher-ups. They were tied up hands, eyes, mouths, and feet, then hidden in the plaza. If found, they faced SIX's baseball bat. If not found, they had to be blindfolded, spun around 100 times, and then attack one. The purpose of the higher-ups doing this was to create divisions among the lower class, so they couldn't unite against them. This game earned them 26 hours. To motivate the lower class, 7 decided to reward them with 9 coins, but not distributed randomly. Everyone had to write down a number. The number written would be the coins received. But if the total exceeded 9, no one would get any coins. The test of humanity began again. If it were you, what number would you write? 3 wanted to write 2, but didn't want to get less than others. Wanted to write 3, but feared going over the limit. In the end, 3 wrote 1, but everyone else wrote 2. This life continued every day. The lower class wanted to quit the game, but when 7 said, the first person to decide to keep playing would get 1 coin, they said they wouldn't give up. But when 7 increased the coins 10-fold, 5 immediately stepped forward. In the challenge of survival, everyone gradually lost their last bit of humanity. Even 3 thought about jumping again. When everyone was in despair, 1 secretly passed notes to the others. 7 also left a signal when passing by 3.
소리가 납니다.
According to the plan, 1 pretended to have a stomach ache during the game, asking to go back to the room for medicine, then shouted in the room. To attract others' attention, 2 and 3 hid on the first floor via the transport elevator. When 6 entered the room, they came out from behind the door to sneak attack, but 6 spotted them. They started fighting in the mess, but the 3 who hadn't eaten well for a week, no match at all for the well-fed 6. 3 opened the door to escape, but ran into 8 holding a stun gun. 6 took the gun, ready to punish them, but 7 shouted. 2 threw a punch, 6 pulled the trigger, but nothing happened, cause 7 had secretly taken out the batteries from the gun. 6 got knocked out with 1 punch.
손 다 나왔다 이 새끼야.
Except for 7 who helped. The other 3 were all captured. They locked each person in a room, and then went up to the 8th floor. This was the first time in a month that 1 washed his face. He wanted to spend 8's prize money, but 2 didn't want them to become like 8. So they just bought instant noodles as a small revenge on 8. After eating, 2 suggested that to keep their humanity, and not be consumed by money and greed, they should use up the time in the plaza and end the game. They held hands, waiting for the last 9 hours. But the next day, they woke up and found that the time had changed from 9 hours to 36 hours. They went to the room where the tied up people were, and found nothing had changed. On the 3rd day, the time increased to 52 hours. They heard shouting and followed the sound to the 4th floor, where they found 4 with 4 teeth pulled out. This explained the extra time on the 3rd day. But what about the 2nd day? While everyone was wondering, 3 suddenly thought that the injury might be in a place they couldn't see. He ran to the 6th floor and found 6's toenails all pulled out, and they had been blindfolded while hurt. Distrust grew among them. The trust they had built was falling apart. 2 chained everyone up, leaving only 5 to bring food and water. But she trusted the wrong person. Because of 5's soft heart and 6's tricks, 5 untied 6's ropes. The kind nun was fooled by the devil and let the devil back into the world. 8 celebrated happily, for became an accomplice again, and 6 started violent revenge. He bought bullets and used Russian roulette to force the person who pulled his nails to confess. 2 got away. But 7 wasn't so lucky. In this place, they had lost their humanity. The original goal of making money had turned into revenge and control. Before the next shot, 3 reminded 6 that there were cameras everywhere. They could find the culprit by buying the tapes. 8 loved seeing others in pain, so she spent 1 billion to buy the footage, and discovered the truth with 6. Turns out, 1 was the poorest of them all. He couldn't even afford heating at home. As a crippled clown, when his daughter got seriously ill, he had to buy insurance and use his life to cure her. But God's mercy gave him one last chance to turn things around, to earn money for his daughter's surgery. He had to save up 1 billion. Before that, he wouldn't let anyone leave this place. But what 6 didn't expect was, he not only pulled out 6's toenails, but also poured water on 6's face.
저 새끼 죽이고 이거 끝낸다.
But as soon as 6 went down the stairs, 8 shocked him with a stun gun. The remaining time increased to 149 hours. It turned out not only 1, but 8 also wanted to stay here the most. 8 was a music performer. She didn't care about money. She just wanted her performances to be seen. She wanted to know if the time in the plaza had an end. So she locked all the men in a room, used clips to hold their eyes open, and filled their necks with water so they couldn't sleep. She spent money to buy videos of their pain to watch, and even painted their suffering. But people are always complicated. Even though she was cruel to people, she loved her pets dearly. But 4 didn't feel the same. She had to take care of everyone's food and waste every day, and even pick up after the dogs. Seeing 4's discontent, 1 decided to make a deal with her. It turned out that on the first day here, he knew he could use money to switch floors. He offered to switch 4 to the 8th floor, if she would free him and the others. 4 agreed right away and found 5, planning that while 4 played golf with 8, 5 would secretly free everyone from their rooms. But their plan was noticed by the dog, just as 8 burst into the room, interrupting 5's rescue. 4 knocked 8 out with a golf club. The lower floors finally had a victory again. 5 then bought surgery tools to cut off 6's secret part. They decided to swap 8 and 4. 1 and 6 swapped too. Everyone was looking forward to the peace after switching rooms. But when 1 used all his money to buy the right to switch rooms, all he got was a set of rules. To move to the 8th floor, he needed 340 billion. The poor people thought they could change their fate, but they only learned the rules of the game, and they never had a ticket to this game from the start. 2 just wanted to end the game quickly. She offered to share the money with 1 if they escaped, but 1 had forgotten how to trust. He tied everyone up. Even though he had a limp, he tried to walk a tightrope to prolong time. but he slipped and fell into a fire caused by a short circuit. When 3 broke free and rushed over, 1 was barely alive. 3 grabbed the walkie-talkie, trying to waste time to get 1 to the hospital, but this amazing performance added 1,000 hours to their time.
우리 이러다 평생 여기서 못 나가는 거 아니냐?
그만하라고 제발! 도대체 뭐가 더 보고 싶은 거야 이 새끼들아!
To wouldn't be seen again, 3 shot all the cameras. But just as the last camera was turned off, 1's life came to an end.
저 같은 게 욕심내면
The door finally opened. The game was over. 3 received 1.5 billion, but the memory of facing death was something he could never forget. He posted an ad to find the other players to hold a funeral for 1. All the women gathered, except for 8. Back in the real world, 8 used a bulldozer to destroy the music hall she performed in, then used all her prize money to pay for the damage. 7 wrote a script about their experience and sold it to investors. Even though 8 had a sad ending in the script, the rich people in real life still lived in luxury. Can anyone really tell the difference between reality and the game? Share your thoughts about this film in the comments. This is Snail Movies. See you next week.